We'll continue today in our session on friends, family, and fidelity. And I'll do a quick review in chapter 9 of 2 Samuel. We were still dealing with the strong relationship that David and Jonathan had, and how Jonathan, loving his father, who was King Saul, had to make a decision concerning his allegiance and his love for his father and the oath or the covenant that he had with David. Jonathan passed, but David stayed true to the agreement that they had. And I asked the question some weeks ago, do we have any friends like that in our lives? And in this time of pandemic, we're all being challenged to not only be men and women of integrity, but now's the opportunity where many of us that are believers have a chance to not only say it, but to demonstrate God's instructions in our lives. So I'm going to, David went on, some time had passed, and he said, is there anybody, and I'm paraphrasing, is there anybody around that's kin to Jonathan? And there was a young man down in Lodibar, Mephibosheth, and the servant of Saul, the king, who also showed a relationship that even in Saul's passing and no longer being king, his servant stayed and was a servant to David. So he went down and he got Mephibosheth, and I'm going to pick up there. In 6 of 2 Samuel 9, it says, Then King David sent out and fetched him out of the house of Machir, the son of Ammiel, from Lodibar. Now when Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, was come unto David, he fell on his face and did reverence. And David said to Mephibosheth, and he answered, Behold thy servant. And David said unto him, Fear not, for I will surely show thee kindness for Jonathan thy father's sake, and will restore thee all the land of Saul thy father, and thou shalt eat bread at my table continually. Now, again, I'm wanting you to see what's going on here. A lot of believers, we always like to quote, there's nothing new under the sun, And that's somewhat true. But the relationships among people that have transgressed over the times, real friendships, real love, God's kind of love, it still exists today, and it still flows heart to heart, breast to breast. But it's an individual thing. Ziba, who was the servant, when David made the arrangements or the proclamation to Mephibosheth that, hey, you're going to be eating at my house from here on. And he told Ziba, the servant of Saul, that basically you're to do whatever Mephibosheth needs you to do. You're to look after him and his family. Notice the response. in 11. He says, then said Ziba unto the king, according to all that my lord the king hath commanded his servant, so shall thy servant do. Now, earlier, when Saul wanted to do a little damage to David, and I'm going back, but I want you to see something here. Ziba said unto David, so shall thy servant do. In other words, all that you said, I'll do. Jonathan said to David, you're not going to die. Basically, I see now my dad doesn't care too much for you. He's looking to take you out. I'm talking in today's vernacular so that you'll understand. But Jonathan said, basically, by my own life, man, I'm going to look out for you. Just tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do it. And I went back to make an example about how we've kind of, we make pledges to one another. Sometimes we even promise one another, and we say, you can count on me. But sometimes things come up in life, and we either disappoint or we fail one another. But what Jonathan said to David, he meant it. And so when the servant Ziba said, David, all that you've proclaimed, I'll do it. He said, but by the way, Mephibosheth's been eating at my table. He was still being true to Saul by his service to David. How many of us are like that? Just something to ponder. In this time, we're all probably becoming a little tired, I guess, of being at home. We're probably running out of new things, we think, to say to one another. We're still practicing social distancing. And, there's a lot of conversation about, let's open things up because of the economy and things of that nature. And I'm not here to politicize anything, but I'm trying to show that we still have to rely on the Most High, because none of us know, regardless of what title we hold, none of us know how this thing's going to play out until he shows how this thing's going to play out. But in the meantime, I would admonish you to not allow yourself to have someone test your faith. They can test their own, but use common sense. Continue social distancing. And when you're ready, you return to the workforce or whatever it is that you're doing. But back to the lesson, because this ties into what's happening right now. (13) says, so Mephibosheth dwelt in Jerusalem, for he did eat continually at the king's table and was lame on both feet. So, not only was he really not able to do a lot for himself, but now he had the best of everything. So David was practicing. David was a man of integrity. Yes, he made mistakes. Yes, he did. And yes, we do also. But David stayed true to his word. His word meant something. But I'm about to show you something in verse 10, what happens sometimes, saints, as we continue to walk out and to live out the Torah. And I'm not sharing this with you for you to detour from it. I'm sharing this with you because you have to realize we've got to stay the course. We've got to stay the course. And it came to pass after this that the king of the children of Ammon died, and Hanun, his son, reigned in his stead. Now listen to what David says. Then said David, I will show kindness unto Hanun, the son of Nahash, as his father showed kindness unto me. See, as we show loving kindness, it's kind of like a duplication. If someone is exceptionally kind to a family member of yours, you would feel a certain kind of way, in a good way, because I know sometimes people use that phrase, and I was feeling a certain kind of way. They mean they're getting upset. But I'm meaning that you feel a sense of, hey, this person seems to love my family member. And you'll find yourself wanting to do something kind unto them. That's how kindness and love really spreads. It's a little more to it than just, well, we don't do it now, but, just the hug or the embrace. It's a little more to it. In fact, saints, really, and that's not a bad thing to do, but you and I both know that costs you very little. To tell somebody that you love them, that costs you very little. But to show someone, to demonstrate, that may inconvenience you. That may change your whole schedule. But David said, hey, this thing worked out pretty good with Mephibosheth. Let me try this again, because, that was pretty good. That was pretty good. I'm going to read this out of another translation. It says, sometime later, when the king of the people of Ammon died, his son Hanun became king in his place. David said, I will show grace to Hanun, the son of Nahash, as his father showed grace to me. So David sent his servants to pass him a message of comfort concerning his father. That's why, a lot of times, somebody passed and we come to the funeral and we're offering our condolences. And we've learned in this society, and I always try to caution us, remember what you say to this person in this time. I mean, because they're hurting. And, saints, they're listening to what you say. So instead of what we call being polite, if there's anything I can do for you, don't say that if you don't mean it. Just offer your condolences and leave it at there. But a lot of times we feel like, well, what you're supposed to say, if there's anything I can do, call me. And again, saints, I caution you, particularly those of you that are of faith. If you're not going to do it, don't say it. Don't say it. Just offer your condolences. Because in a time like that, people are looking for a display of real love. Their hearts are crushed. And it's times like that, saints, where we need to be more than just polite. Because see, sometimes we devalue words because we say them often, but we perform them seldom. But let me get back to this. David's servants entered the territory of the people of Ammon, but the leaders of the people of Ammon said to Hanun, their lord. Now, listen at this. Now, here's. Let me paint this. David is showing loving kindness. He showed it to Mephibosheth because of Jonathan. Now he wants to show it to Hanun. But listen at what happens, and the same thing is happening today as it did back then. Listen at this. It says now. Listen. He says, but the leaders of the people of Ammon said to Hanun, their lord, do you really think David is honoring your father by sending people to comfort you? Why do we do that? Why, when someone is doing something from their heart, why are we so skeptical? Well, I mean, in America, I know why we're skeptical. Because, you know, we've seen a lot, we've heard a lot, we've been disappointed. But we got to fight through that. We got to keep a heart of flesh. we got and it's hard. It's hard. I'm gonna go on a little further. Do you really think David is honoring your father by sending people to comfort you? Hasn't David actually sent his servants to you in order to look the city over? And they use a word, basically they're going to do a reconnaissance mission. They're going to check out the city to overthrow it. Now, David was doing something out of love. And somebody else that had nothing to do, he wasn't even thinking about these people. He was thinking about Hanun. But others want to interject themselves into this relationship building attempt. And saints, sometimes we do that. So Hanun took David's servants. Listen at this. So Hanun took David's servants, shaved off half their beards, cut off their clothes halfway, at their buttocks, and then sent them away. So Hanun, who was being shown an act of kindness, listened to the people around him. And he believed them over David. Now, I wonder how many of them sent people to Hanun, or did they just offer their condolences again? And did they say, well, Hanun, if there's anything I can do for you, I'll do it? I'm just wondering. You see, in reading the scriptures, saints, you got to realize there's a lot more going on than just what was written on the pages. So he cut off, shaved half their heads, cut off their clothes halfway up at their buttocks, and then sent them away. Listen further. On hearing how they had been treated, David sent a delegation to meet them because the men had been deeply humiliated. Why would we do that? Somebody come to town wanting to do something good in the city. Maybe the residents don't want something done good in the city. So now you got opposition. You're trying to do something good. You're trying to do something of the Lord, but opposition arises. See, sometimes when God's love is shown, not everybody is happy. And so, you know, I'm sharing this, saints, so that we won't be caught off guard. Because a lot of us, we're sometimes of the school of thought, man, you know, because I'm trying to love everybody, everybody else is trying to love everybody. And sometimes you get hurt if that's the way you're thinking. You know, there's a scripture to tell us, be wise as a serpent, but harmless as a dove. Now, saints, that was given to us the way it was for a reason. Because it's some tough people out here. So I mean, you know, this is getting interesting. I mean, shaved half the head, cut the clothes up to the backside. He humiliated them because he believed the people around him, and he didn't give David the benefit of the doubt. The king said, stay in Jericho until your beards have grown back, and then return. Aware that they were utterly abhorrent to David, the people of Ammon sent and hired 20,000 Aram foot soldiers. So after they humiliated the delegation, they said, we're going to do one better than that. We getting the boys together. We getting the fellas together. I mean, people were mean then, and they're still mean now. All right. By faith, I received that statement. Aware that they were utterly abhorrent to David, the people of Ammon sent and hired 20,000 foot soldiers, and the king Maacah with 1,000 men and 12,000 soldiers from Tob. So that's about 33,000 soldiers. That's quite a gang. When David heard of it, he sent Joab with his entire army of trained soldiers. Now, David is a man after God's own heart. And I know I'll share with a lot of us, and a lot of us know this scripture well, and we've had it used up against us about turning the other cheek. It says, David, when he heard of it, he sent his entire army of trained soldiers. Now, David is thinking, wait a minute, I was showing this guy some love. Now, I don't know why he did what he did. But if you notice, David didn't go to war right away. And saints, we can learn something there. See, David wasn't soft. And a lot of times as believers, we're looked at as that we're soft. But initially, when his delegation told him what happened, he just said, listen, stay in the city till your stuff grow back. He didn't say, oh, hey, no, I'm King David. You don't do me like that. Now, that's how we may have reacted. But he said, no, just stay in the city till things get straight. But then he did hear, oh, man, they getting a group together. And they getting ready to come to war. And see, saints, even in times like this, we got to be not ready for war, but we got to be ready. We saints, we need to know more about what's going on around us. I pray for the day where we can be proactive rather than always reactive. Because sometimes, saints, by the time we look to rectify a situation, the damage is long done. The army of Ammon came out and went into battle formation at the entrance to the city gate. The men of Aram and the men of Tov were by themselves in the open countryside. So they trying to set up a two-prong attack. See? I mean, let's stop just for a second. Now, how did all of this come to pass? David was doing an act of kindness. That's what he was trying to do. He wasn't trying to go to war with this guy. And I'm sure he had a reputation. I mean, you know, he'd won a few scraps in his day. So to me, you wouldn't really want to mess with him. You know? But yet, because a group of people sought to interject their opinion about what his intentions were, and only David and the Most High knew what was in his heart concerning Hanan. But Hanan listened to the wrong folk. And you know what? I'm not going to discredit the whole group. It probably was a group, but only one or two or three or four brazen folk wanted to have something to say. Were they jealous because David didn't send a delegation for them? Where in the scriptures, it didn't say they lost somebody. I mean, why do we find it necessary to always want to interject ourselves when it really doesn't concern us? See, this is what keeps stuff going in a negative way in all the houses of worship. Listen to this in 9. When Yoav saw that he would be fighting on two fronts, ahead and behind, he chose the best troops of Israel to deploy against Aram. While the rest of the army he put under the command of his brother to deploy against the army of Ammon. See, so right away, I mean, see, when David sent his best, he didn't send the guys that had no heart. And let me say this too, so that to help some of us out. Just because you are afraid does not make you a coward. A lot of heroes that made great acts of performed great feats, when they were asked, they said, yes, I was afraid. But they did what they needed to do. And see, that's where we got to be. I would imagine back in that time, before you went to battle, if you weren't a little afraid, you might have had a screw loose, because you could possibly lose your life. He said, if Aram is too strong for me, you help me. But if the army of Ammon is too strong for you, then I will come help you. Listen to this. Take courage and let's be strong for the sake of our people and the cities of our God. And see, no truer words are spoken. You see, saints, we have a tough job to do. Not everybody is going to be open to you wanting to share Torah with them. Some people might want to fight, depending on what's going on in their lives. And right now, most of our nerves are frayed. You know, anxiety is high. But we got to stay true to the King. And that's not always easy. And I shared this with you because David was showing loving kindness. David was trying to say to Hanan, listen, man, your father was good to me. And I want that to continue, that our families continue to be good to one another. You know, and you know, I believe relationships like that still exist today, but it's not enough of them. I mean, we're in a time, we trust very few people. We trust very few people. And then I think what further hurts us is when we do trust, sometimes it's the wrong person. Mm, 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 mm. And then he said, take courage and let's be strong for the sake of our people and the cities of our God. May Adonai do what seems good to him. Now notice he didn't say, God is on our side. Let me read it again. May Adonai do what seems good to him. And I know in the one of the faiths, I'm not going to call it, but I have a cousin, and I remember him singing a song, and basically the refrain of it was, if I perish, let me perish, but I'm going to see the King or to meet the King. Well, this guy was like, we getting ready to go into battle. And we're doing this for the people of our city and for our God. But he said, may Adonai do what seems good to him. Now, to me, saints, that's real faith. Real faith to me is not necessarily God is on our side. To me. That thing stuck out to me. It says, may Adonai do what seems good to him. And saints, we can think about Job. And he said, basically, if he take me out, he take me out, but I'm going to serve him. I mean, sometimes it's tough. It's tough. Mm. So Yoav and the people went went to battle Aram, and they fled before him. When the people of Ammon saw that Aram had fled, they likewise fled before Avishai and retreated into the city. In other words, that big gang of people, when they saw those guys, oh, we getting ready to respond, they had no heart. See, that's one thing about a mob. And a mob can be 4 or 5 people. Doesn't have to be a whole army of people. And I'm going somewhere with this because when a lot of discord breaks out in the house of God, it only takes a few people saying things that they shouldn't be saying. And a lot of times it doesn't even have anything to do with them. But when you push a saint to a point where they see no way out but to fight, now you're dealing with somebody that has not only heart, but the heart of God. The mob, with another kind of heart, usually will disperse. Now, sometimes you might have to go a few rounds. But look how many years ago that was. And they say, now, the good thing is, mobs of today, they just want to kill you with their tongue, most of them. Most of them. I mean, but really, character assassination is that's still a hurtful thing. That's a hurtful thing, because all of us would like a good name in our community. All of us would like to feel like if John Doe said he's going to do it, you can set your watch to John Doe or Jane Doe. But if somebody says, well, John Doe told me he was going to do it, man, you believe that? And they just run his name down. And then it says, listen to this, down in 15, it says, when Aram saw that Israel had gotten the better of them, they gathered themselves together. Hadaezer sent and brought out the people of Aram who lived beyond the Euphrates River, Africa. They came to Halem with the commander of Hadazer's army at their head. It was reported to David, so he gathered all Israel together, crossed the Jordan, and came to Halem. Aram deployed themselves against David and fought him, but Aram fled before Israel. David killed 700 chariot drivers and 40,000 horsemen from Aram. Now, remember now, David didn't start it. David didn't start it. And, some of you say, well, man, why are you, you're in a church. What are you talking about fighting? Saints, with what's going on, there's a two-prong attack, economic and health-wise. We need to be guarded. And we need to be guarded in such a way, though, that we can still show loving kindness to one another and to strangers. But be wise in your approach. Let me finish out the chapter. And after he killed the 700 chariot drivers and 40,000 horsemen, he struck the commander of their armies so that he died there. When all Hadazer's vassal kings saw that they had been defeated by Israel, listen to this, they made peace with Israel and became their subjects. So Aram was afraid to help the people of Ammon anymore. Now, let's do a quick review. David sends a delegation to do an act of kindness, to show love, because of the way that Hanan's father showed grace to him. Hanan listens to the wrong people. Yeah, they were so-called leaders, but he listened to them. And he has their heads shaven and their clothes cut up. He humiliates them. They were going to do the king's bidding, but they weren't going to war. They were going to do an act of kindness. They were going to show some love. And so, I'm saying that because a lot of us sometimes we're like, well, Father, I'm doing what I can. I look around to see if I can help somebody or do something right. And man, I just get treated so badly sometimes. And sometimes the ones that's in your group that's supposed to be with you, they can give you a headache sometimes. But then the naysayers and the mob, they say, well, look, David know what happened. Well, we're going to attack. But just we can't do it because, David got a reputation. So we're going to get a whole bunch of folk. So then they form alliances to do evil. See, sometimes people, they like something that's juicy. And so, oh, yeah, what? You did what? You saw what? Oh, man. Well, I always thought he was too good to be true. And we've heard that. If it's too good to be true, it usually is too good to be true. But not necessarily. Messiah is too good to be true. And he is true. So they get an army together. David sends his trained soldiers. They see that, hey, they're setting a trap for us. They're trying to come from both ends. So he splits up his contingency, and he basically says, look, if you see me losing, you come help me. If I see you losing, I'm coming to help you. That's kind of like, that reminds me of when we was growing up. If one of us got in a scrap, we would stay out of it if it was one-on-one. Now, if they getting the better of my brother, I'm getting in it. But that's the way it was back in the day. You stayed out of it, you know. Sort of fair. But when David's army was proactive by splitting up, the mob ran. See, when opposition comes and you respond, and they see in your face and in your heart and they hear it, I'm not going anywhere. I'm standing for righteousness. What is it? What was said to Cain? If sin crouch at the door, you know. But saints, we gotta have heart. And again, I'm not abdicating always getting in a fist fight with somebody. I'm not abdicating that. But we need to let folks know we're not soft. And you should not run my reputation down. I might not do everything perfect. But why are you assassinating my character? What have I done to you? I'm on a mission. I'm trying to do the will of the Most High. Why are you wanting to impede my progress? You should be doing the same. Like I said before, Torah's for everybody, whether they realize it or not. And to finish up, they dispersed. But then they went, regrouped, got another mob. They said, hey, I ain't scared of, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not afraid of David. You know, me and my boys, we coming, and it says here, it says, oh, they got some David. They wanted some. They got some. It said David killed 700 chariot drivers and 40,000 horsemen. You know, he from a little boy he had moxie. You know that. He had it. What is it? Chutzpah. That's the word they like to use. He had chutzpah. And saints, we got to do the same. Again, I'm not saying go out here and get in a fist fight with somebody. But stand up for what's right. And don't remain silent when evil tongues are wagging. Now, don't try to take on the whole crowd by yourself. But in these times of uncertainty and people's nerves are just shot. We got to stay the course, and we have to continue to be an example. I went up to Fredericksburg to drop off some supplies to a friend of mine, and I was asking, you know, how y'all doing? We're doing all right, and she was saying that her husband is just not handling this thing well. You know, he's got anxiety real bad, you know, and I guess he feels like all of what he has been working for, he may lose it. And you know, I just shared with her, but it's going to come to an end. I don't know when, but this too shall come to pass. And he's a man of faith, you know. Yeah, he's a man of faith. But it just it just resonated with me. I mean, so many people are at their wits' end right now. A lot. And so, of course, what I need to do is call him and try to take his mind off it. I got to come up with some good, clean jokes to tell him. But just something to just make him smile for a little while. And I told her, I did share with her, I said, tell him, cut the TV off. You know, because if you talk to most people that are really it's like they can't tear themselves away from it. I said, you only need about 15 minutes of it, and then go to something else. He's a good athlete. I said, man, watch some, I'm going to tell him, watch some football movies or something, Put on a funny movie so you can laugh, And I mean, I know that's just going to, maybe that'll give him an hour or two, but Saints, we got to get from up under this heavy anxiety. It's really trying to be poured on us. And you turn the news on, it's more bad news. And so, yeah, you stay informed. Yes, please stay informed. Don't put your head in the sand. Don't do that. But don't get a heaping dose of that stuff every day. It'll make you crazy. God bless you, and may the Most High continue to smile on you.